I want to thank Ruben for bringing you today's video via his support on Patreon. Cloud Midgar Mercenary versus Lazav, Aloro, and Sin. Well, we've got a turn 2 commander with some equipment as well, so yeah, we keep this. A Lotus Cobra from the Soul type player, followed by Search for as counter for Aloro. Draw into Ether Spark, another equipment, so I think we go straight for our commander for a free tutor. Does mean that we're going to have to discard, and I'm kind of half tempted to make it the Lightning Greaves, to be honest, because at the last minute I turned this into a Voltron list, which it wasn't originally, and Shroud isn't going to be all that great with Lightning Greaves on our commander because it keeps them from being equipped with other things. We want this early in the game, Sword of the Animist, because it will trigger twice whenever our commander attacks while it's equipped. Evolving Wilds into the Lotus Cobra will make a couple of mana. Roiling Regrowth sacrifices another land, gets 2 more into play for 2 more mana. So with that 3 mana, he gets 6 into play, which can have him retrace non-land permanents. Aura of Silence surveilled into the bin for Aloro, so I think it's safe to assume that this is going to be your typical Enchantments Pillow Fort build. So holding on to Austere Command for as long as possible is going to be an idea. Another Plains for us, so I think we just show our opponents the Sword of the Animist, and I suppose we might as well get some stationing going onto this land while we're doing nothing else. When this thing is at 12 loyalty, it will tap for 4 and create a copy of an artifact or enchantment we control. Parallel Lives to make double tokens. 6 decides to attack and mill some cards, so there is now a Nature's Claim and a Rampaging Baloths in the bin. And he's swung in at us because I decided to tap this down, not that I could have blocked with it anyway. And now Detention Sphere. Is that going to go on the Parallel Lives? It is. Too scary a card to leave in play. Sea of Clouds has been surveilled into the bin as well. Hopefully we're going to be able to land the Sword of the Animist onto our commander here, because it'd be nice to get ahead on some mana. Drew into Troubling Pairs to draw some more cards. Equip up the Cloud. Priority is being held up by Sin, so he might have a Pongify. And we get to attack straight down the middle against the player who's gaining a bunch of life. That is 2 Rampant Growths from Sword of the Animist. So that's great, accelerating ahead nicely as well as dealing a little bit of damage. I think we're fine to just have the Conqueror's Flail sat there for next turn. Sin Spearer's Punishment makes it into play for the first time, and he's going to exile a permanent from his graveyard. He got a land in there as well, so he must have got the land and the Rampaging Baloths. Anyway, milling more with the 6, and swung the Lotus Cobra in as well. Another land surveilled away by the Search for Azcanta. Spark Rupture is an enchantment. When it enters, draw a card. Each Planeswalker with 1 or more loyalty counters loses all abilities and is a creature with power and toughness equal to the number of loyalty counters on it. So much for us getting the Ether Spark down. Consuming Aberration. And a Buried Ruin we draw into, so I think we're fine to just get down another Plains. And if we want to be dispatching something like Sin, then we need to get Metalcraft going. I'm not sure if this is going to be an equipment still, or an artifact still. How is this worded? The Planeswalker loses all abilities and is a creature. I'm not sure if it's still going to be an artifact. It doesn't say, as well as its other types. Let's just try it. Might as well try and equip up the Conqueror's Flail first. Keep anyone from doing anything to us on our turn. We're at least ramping with the Cloud quite nicely. So the Ether Spark is not an artifact, which means the Dispatch is not going to have Metalcraft and therefore not exile this. So let's just continue to focus on the Aloro player and continue to Rampant Growth twice whenever we do. Now that I know that, I wish I'd got down the Troubling Pairs instead. Vampiric Tutor during the upkeep for Sin. Assassin's Trophy has been cast onto the Detention Sphere in order to get the Parallel Lives back, just in time for the Spearer's Punishment to swing him. And Saw in Half is going to go on to the Rampaging Baloth, so it might be time for Austere Command already. Could go enchantments and big creatures. So plays a land, gets a bunch of Baloths into play. Those will not go down to the Wrath, unfortunately. Or maybe we could just go for all creatures if someone else doesn't, and replay the Cloud for another tutor. The creatures are going in at Aloro, so gets himself a Progenitor Mimic. 2 copies of that. Must have just milled that off the 6. I don't recall seeing it in the bin. He's got in the bin at the moment Doubling Season, a Summon Titan, a Glacier Godmore, and I think we've seen everything else. So the clones come in as Consuming Aberrations, and another land thrown into the bin by the enchantment. Decided to cast Replenish to get some of his enchantments back, so Aura of Silence and Detention Sphere have re-entered play. Detention Sphere, there's nothing under it, so... Oh, he's gone after the Rampaging Baloths as opposed to the Beast tokens. I'd rather he'd gone after these so that I could have dealt with the big Rampaging Baloths with Austere Command, but obviously I can't communicate that to him on Magic Online. Got a land tax down as well. Shadow Mage Infiltrator has hit play for the Dimir player. Whenever it deals damage, draw a card. The Consuming Aberration is a 23/23 at the moment. Noteworthy there's a Humility in the graveyard over here. And the 23/23 is going to deal with Oloro for the most part, so maybe we don't have to go for the Wrath onto enchantments after all. We can just bully this guy out of the game. It is Oloro, so can't feel too bad about it. That will actually switch on our Ether Spark again as well. So now we've got a Thram Power Suit. We know no one can do anything during our turn because we've got the Conqueror's Flail equipped. So we'll go straight through to combat and deal with Oloro. Get our Rampant Growths again, and hopefully we'll be able to show off some other equipment at some point. We've got plenty of equipments that will trigger when Cloud swings in with them. So down he goes to -2, and we'll play Buried Ruin. We have to go for the Austere Command here, unfortunately, but thanks to having the Buried Ruin played this turn, we can still afford to replay the Cloud. So all the creatures get blown up, and replay Cloud for another tutor. I think we'd make use of protection from green, as well as some more card advantage, so Sword of Forging Frontier might be the one to go for. Then let's plus on the Planeswalker eventually, and dump that onto our commander. And then I don't think we need to worry about blocks, so let's station this land, just in case that's of any relevance at some point. Could maybe have done it with this while it was a creature previously, but I wanted to hold up at least one blocker. So 7 away from making this relevant. In a Voltron build this might not be quite as good because we want to be holding back our commander as a blocker with Vigilance if we can, but definitely want to be swinging in with it. Noteworthy there's a Shifting Woodland here now. So down comes Sin, going to reanimate some stuff. We do now have the Metalcraft available to us for the dispatch. And exiles this time a couple of Doubling Seasons. They double themselves upon entry, or one of them did. Nemesis of Reason. This is really old school classic Dimir Mill, which unfortunately has a lot better stuff than this nowadays. But you might have some combos that appear out of nowhere. That is a Genji, so we can get an additional combat phase with the sword potentially. Don't think we need to worry about equipping Conqueror's Flail if we don't have to. I think we definitely want the Sword of Forging Frontier in play and equipped. And we're one shy of playing the Genji Glove unfortunately, but I don't think I would have played it here, tapped out into it anyway. So we've got protection from green, we can swing in straight down the middle to the left, and that will trigger a bunch, so we get the double triggers on the Ether Spark, and double triggers on the Sword of Forging Frontier. Exile 2 cards twice, and we get another couple of lands this turn if we want them. Pure Steel Paladin and Ancient Tomb are really nice. There's a Ganjo and Forge Anew. So this thing now jumps up to a 15 loyalty Planeswalker, which we could make 10 mana with if we wanted to. I think I definitely want Ancient Tomb. We can play the Ganjo as a land as well, and Forge Anew can go and grab back that Lightning Greaves. In fact, I thought this was a cast trigger. I should have played this first because it's an ETB on the equipment, so could have got a free draw there. Either way, we're getting down the Pure Steel Paladin. Sword of Forging Frontier doing a lot of work for us there. Let's minus this down for a bunch of mana, and we're making white with that, which allows us into a Trouble in Pairs, the Thram Power Suit. When that enters, draw with the Paladin, and that is a Codsworth, so we can give our commander Ward. Definitely go for the Genji Glove, just have to hope that there's no kind of Artifact Wrath here, because I'm definitely not playing around it. Draws us a Swiftfoot Boots. Should have done this before. Put that Conqueror's Flail onto the commander so no one can do anything during our turn. Now it's Swiftfoot Boots. Draw with the Paladin again. Should have been a card deeper like I said before. Haven't made a plains yet apparently, so drop that. And let's throw all of this equipment on, apart from the Lightning Greaves, which maybe shouldn't be in the deck. In fact, I'll put Lightning Greaves onto the Pure Steel Paladin. And then we'll attempt to dispatch the Sin over here, because we've definitely got Metalcraft now. Although the client is starting to bug out annoyingly. The Sin has been successfully dealt with. Let's go for Station, just still having the client regain consciousness here. The commander at the moment, we'll have a look at that while we let our opponents take their turns. There's still 2 doubling seasons here, so we're far from out of the danger zone here. But our commander is a 14/13 with Pro Red and Green, Double Strike, Haste, Hexproof and Ward 2, as well as the double triggers on a bunch of stuff. So we'd actually get double additional combats with this thing. A Spring Heart Nantuko is what we got protection from green for. All of his tokens seem to be green. Could have been worse, he could have bestowed this onto the Sin, which is what I dare say he was aiming for. Would have got a bunch of triggers off this, and it is an ETB. He would have only kept one of them, but getting a load of stuff reanimated from his graveyard in doing so, and getting multiple tokens of each one. Anyway, Bojuka Bog is going to exile our graveyard. We're not too worried about that. He's played 1 or 2 lands here, I'm not sure how many, but he's ended up with 8 insect tokens. He's got a token of the 6 as well as the original 6. Oh, that's from the Shifting Woodlands, so the Shifting Woodland became a copy of 6, and then he's used that, ironically, to discard a land and retrace the original 6. All of his creatures are green though. We've drawn into Generous Gift off the Trouble in Pairs, and we're just going to have double strike commander damage on the Sin next turn. Unless the Dimir player has something to say about it. He hasn't really done too much of anything this game. That is a Dimir Doppelganger. Exile a creature from a graveyard and that can become a copy of it. He doesn't have his colours fixed yet, unfortunately. The second spell draws us a card with the Trouble in Pairs, and that is a Cruel Somnophage. Currently a 6/6. Obviously the more players go down and the more graveyards get exiled to Sin, the weaker his stuff is going to be. 3/7 swings in at us and mills 10 cards because he thinks that we are going to take out the Sin next turn, and he's right in assuming that. I always think this thing has flying, because in the artwork it's flying, but it is noteworthy that we can block that thing. We've got the Sun Titan was exiled previously, must have been put in our bin, then it was exiled by that Bojuka Bog. But there's Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, just lands, Path to Exile, cleared a lot of stuff off the top for us actually. We did lose Buster Sword, Pariah, part of a combo, and Umezawa's Jitte, which we can fish back with the Buried Ruin if we want to. I mean, we kind of have to go for Buster Sword here, don't we, onto Cloud? So we've got Esper Sentinel, drop a Plains, crack the Buried Ruin, pointed at the Buster Sword. Again, no one can do anything on our turn thanks to the Conqueror's Flail, which is a criminally underplayed card. Even in Artifact equipment decks, I don't see that played a lot for some reason. Throw out the Buster Sword, that will cantrip thanks to the Pure Steel Paladin. And when the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Play a spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the damage, so that's pretty much anything from our hand. A Caduceus Staff, I think we get down with lifelink before we deal a bunch of damage and make our commander indestructible. Problem is this guy might not take the damage, and therefore we lose the damage triggers. He might just scoop in response out of spite, which is what so many players on Magic Online tend to do. Shows us Mantle of the Ancients, ready for the board wipe. Equip these things up for free, and we're actually only going to one-shot someone now, so the double strike isn't actually relevant thanks to this being a 24/22. Don't have any means of evasion for the Dimir player yet though, but hopefully we get to actually land the damage, because we might get into something. So it's double triggers, we get 2 additional combats after this, thanks to the Genji Glove. Clear the library of 2 more planes. Sword of the Animist has fetched out pretty much all of our basics this game. Okay, so he does valiantly take it, goes down to 29 commander damage, I do appreciate that. So now it is, we'll put Ether Spark on the stack first. And I don't suppose it matters, we don't know what's on top of the library. We'll go for Sword or Forge and Frontier, and then the Buster Sword can draw us. The Buster Sword can Put down the Sword of Feast and Famine, draw and play it for free, which draws us a card again with the Pure Steel Paladin, clears a land off the top, and another land with the Buster Sword. Might as well just play the Codsworth to easier dodge those edicts that I always want to play around. Then exile 2 cards twice again with the Sword of Forge and Frontier, is a Sigarda's Aid and a Rogue's Passage, and a Cavern of Souls along with a Steel Shaper's Gift. Ether Spark gets a bajillion loyalty counters, so that is now a 53 loyalty Planeswalker. Not sure I've seen one that big before. So then we're straight through to an additional combat. Can't equip things at instant speed unfortunately, but we'll swing in with our indestructible commander. And let's do some Rampant Growths again. We're only going to have 1 Plains left in the whole library. Keywords on this thing now, it's prevent all damage that would be dealt to it, indestructible, lifelink, hexproof, haste, double strike, pro red and green, and it has 2 cases of Ward 2. Deciding to block with this thing, thanks to our lack of evasion, although we do have pro black now. So that's damage dealt again, so Ether Spark getting even bigger. It now has 101 counters on it. Oh, we do get an additional combat, we just don't get the untap trigger apparently, so if we were to crew up other, or equip up other creatures, then we might be able to do something there, but unfortunately not. So we'll go through to our second main phase. Good to know that that's how it works. Let's minus down on this for 5 loyalty, draw 2 cards, and that draws us into more incredible swords, Sword of Hearth and Home, and Fire and Ice. We have not played a land yet, so we definitely want Rogue's Passage for next turn. Play Sigarda's Aid. We can probably just play on our opponent's turn near enough after that. Just equip the sword for free. Play Esper Sentinel to try and draw. In fact, we could throw a Nettle Cyst onto the Esper Sentinel if we want to go and tutor that out. Although we've got Ultima Weapon, which is an attack trigger, might be more interesting. Nazgul Battle Mace as well, Annihilator 1. I think that's going to be more interesting than trying to mess around with the Esper Sentinel. Oh, I forgot we've got additional lands this turn, don't we? So we'll get down the Cavern of Souls. Just name Human. And then I think we're okay to just pass the turn at that and likely get our opponent next turn. It's noteworthy that if he swings in with this and mills us, then we can go for an instant speed Mantle of the Ancients and reanimate all of our equipment onto something like the Esper Sentinel. But instead decides to scoop it up on us. That's fair enough. We've likely got him next turn. It's very difficult for Dimir to deal with this outside of bounce. We were drawing into the Pariah Shield, so it was a case of our opponent not being able to deal any damage to us. This, along with the Caduceus Staff, means that damage dealt to us is dealt to our commander, and damage can't be dealt to our commander, so no damage is dealt whatsoever. Yeah, that went very well, and I think it went well for at least one of our other opponents. That Sin deck looked pretty frightening. Luckily managed to overrun him as ever. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave it a like for YouTube's algorithms. Subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all the latest videos from the channel, and consider donating on Patreon if you want to support me financially. A massive thank you to the few of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.